Hello and welcome back in my in this King Air B200. I'm flying right now from Lapse to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. For the people who wonder, the autopilot is on. I have a co-pilot who is monitoring the com, and I'm also, as I'm talking to you, monitoring the flight instruments and everything. So no worries, everything is safe. I'm just taking a few minutes while I'm flying on cruise, there's not much to do, to talk to you about the engine start. So a couple of years ago I made a video it's about what's happening inside the engine when you start the engine, a PT6, and so you can see the switches, you can see the compression in the engine and the burning chamber and stuff like that. And people were asking for a little bit more information about the engine start. So this video is kind of a little bit part 2 of this other video, and I'm going to talk about engine limitation, and we're going to also talk about the engine start fault. But the first part is we're going to talk about the engine limitation. First limitation I'm going to have is the oil temperature, the minimum oil temperature Whitney Witness said we can start the engine with is minus 40 degrees Celsius. I did do one day a start, I think the engine was like minus 10. The engine was cold but the battery was warm. So I was able, I didn't have any GPU, so I didn't have a choice to do a battery start. I did a try and I was ready for any hang start or even a hot start. And but everything went well. Considering the situation, we didn't exceed any limitation of the engine and we were able to start and go on with our day. However, minus 8, minus 10 is not fixed numbers that change from engine to engine. Depends if your battery is cold, if you have a GPU, last time you started the engine it was 2 weeks ago, if it was 24 hours ago, so a lot of variables can make a difference for a cold start. But it's really recommended not to start the engine if it's below minus 0. If it's under 0 degrees Celsius, you're most likely going to have to speak to either maintenance or your operation management. The second limitation we're going to have is going to be the motor. So each engine has a generator mounted on the back of the engine, and these motors/generators has been used to start the engine but also to create electricity. When you start the motor has a 40-second limitation. So you turn on the motor to start, and your timer starts at the same time for 40 seconds, and you have 40 seconds for your N1 to reach 50%. I think it's been considered the engine has been started, so you can turn off the motor. But if you do not manage to start the engine in 40 seconds, you will need to reject the start and turn on the timer again for another 60 seconds. So for 40 seconds, the motor is running, and after 40 seconds, it has to cool down 60 seconds before attempting another start. So you do that twice in a row, 40, 60, 40, 60, and you have another 40 seconds. And after this 40 seconds, you need to wait half an hour before attempting another start. So why 3? Because you can have the first start is you failed your start, you cool down, you have to doing a clearing procedure on your engine. I will explain that later. And so it's take another 40 seconds to cool the engine. And when your cool engine is cool, you need to do another start, and it's going to take you another 40 seconds to do another start. And after that, you need to wait half an hour. We also have the oil pressure limitation. So when you start the engine, oil pressure is going to be at 0. That is going to, we need them to rise, and we need to have a minimum 60 psi. So 60 psi is the minimum pressure we need to have in the engine. So keep an eye on oil pressure when you start your engine. the maximum oil pressure you can have is 135. Now we talk about the N1 limitation. For the start, the AFM talk about minimum 12%. Don't forget 12% is the minimum. It's really recommended to start the engine with a higher N1. Personally, I'm using when the N1 stabilizing or is reaching 15%. The higher compression you have in the turbine, the better start you're going to have and less risk to have a hot start as well. More you keep your N1 low when you introduce the fuel, more you have a risk to have a hot start, to get close to a hot start. Now I'll talk about the ITT. The ITT is a little bit more complicated as a limitation. Mostly for young pilots who just start on a PT6, can get sometimes a little bit confused. The ITT has different limitations depending on the phase of your flight. The engine instrument is indicated as 800. But for a start, you can also see this little triangle, 1000. So the way it works for the ITT is the temperature can go up to 1000 for 5 seconds. At 1001 degrees, you exceed the maximum ITT. So here, if you look at the chart, that is a chart of limitation of this specific PT6. And this chart showed at 840 degrees, a timer starts at 0. But we have also a limitation at 850 degrees. So if you exceeded 850 degrees for more than 5 seconds, you exceeded the ITT limitation. However, you can go up to 1000 and go back down below 850 in less than 5 seconds. You didn't exceed anything. So the timer starts at 40, but until you reach 850, you're not in any danger. You're not exceeding any limit. Big thing to remember is 840 the timer starts, 850 is you don't want to be above 850 for more than 5 seconds. And you can be over 850 if you're in 5 seconds, but you cannot exceed 1000 degrees Celsius. So now let's talk about the engine start fault. There is 3 major faults on the engine start we can have. The one is a no light start, the second one is a hung start, and the last one is a hot start. So the no light start is can come from different things. It can come from just the ignition is not lighted up, burning the fuel. It can also come from any problem inside the combustion chamber, or the fuel will just not light up. If it's the first one, before you introduce the fuel, you realize is no shutter light is not on. You just don't introduce the fuel, and it's like no event. You just shut down the plane and talk to your IME, and it's going to fix the problem. If you did introduce the fuel, and it's not burning, at that point is another problem. At that point you just there's no burning, there's no N1 increasing, there's no ITT increasing. You just reject the start, fuel cut off, and you can leave the motor. You can leave the motor on motor only to the remaining of time of the start. So if you reject the start, I'd say 25 seconds, you cut off the fuel and you put a motor on motor only until you reach 40 seconds. At that point you stop and you run the QRH. So the hang start, what happened is you have 40 seconds to start the engine, and the engine has to be at 50%. When the N1 reaches 50%, the start is considered as a successful. But you have 40 seconds to get at this 50%. And the first one I had is a slow hang start. So the N1 is increasing, but not fast enough to reach 50% in a 40 seconds. The other hang start you may have is the N1 may increase, but stabilize, let's say 30% or 40%, but never reach 50%. At that point you will have to again reject the start. The last one is hot start. The hot start, the one we discussed earlier on the engine limitation, is when the N1 correction is when the ITT goes above 1000 degrees or go above 850 degrees for more than 5 seconds, and in this case you have a hot start. So the hot start, same procedure than hang start. You get a fuel cutoff and turn the motor on motor only for the remaining of time of your start, and at that point you start your timer again for the 60 seconds, and during this 60 seconds you get your checklist for hot start. And that brings us to the last thing, and is about the engine clearing. So when you have a hang start and a hot start, before attempting any other start, with the approval of course of the AMEs, you will need to clear the engine. So when you eject the start, like for a hot start, your combustion chamber is very hot, you may have some residue of fuel inside, mostly for the hang start, so you want to do a clearing procedure. So a clearing procedure is as simple as turning the engine and motor only with no ignition for 40 seconds. So you run 40 seconds the engine, you can have to cool down the ITT, and yeah, that's it. I think I talked about everything about limitation and false start. If you have any question, leave a comment below. Leave a like also below. It's going to help me a little bit with my channel, as YouTube wants likes to be able to promote videos. So don't forget to put a like under. And if you have any question, let me know. And even if I made a mistake something, just start a conversation. Have a safe flight and see you. Bye.